Hey guys, it's Ashley, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 books that I read in 2017. And this was a video that I was hoping to have gotten filmed and uploaded before the end of the year, but hey, now's better than never. I kind of wanted to do a top 17 books of 2017 and just keep increasing it from there, but I don't think I read enough books to be able to pick out 17 of them as my favorites without making them all from one series or things like that. So we're just gonna go with top 10. Now, as I was going through the list of books that I read this year, I did realize that a lot of them were one from the same author or two from the same series. So I made a few rules for myself when picking for this list. The first rule is that I can only pick one book per author that I read. So with Victoria Schwab, I can only pick one book that I read of hers this year. The second rule was that I could only pick one book out of a series that I read. So for instance, the Darker Shade of Magic series. I can't pick all three books to be on this list, I only have to pick one from that series. I figured that it would diversify my list a little bit more than just having it all be Victoria Schwab or Cassandra Clare or you know what I mean? Also, another note, not all of these books were published in 2017. A lot of them I just read in 2017 for the first time, so keep that in mind. And without further ado, let us begin. So we are going to start on the very bottom of the list and work our way up. Number 10 is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. This book I absolutely loved when I read it so much, and I can't wait for its sequel. The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue is basically a tromp around the world in the 1800s. We follow Monty, who is the son of a wealthy man, and his best friend slash love interest Percy as they go around the world on their grand tour, and lots of stuff happens that really shouldn't happen, and they get led on this adventure. We also have Felicity, who is Monty's sister, going along so that she can go to finishing school, but in the end something completely different happens to her, and it's absolutely amazing. If you haven't picked this up yet, you definitely should. It's great, it's amazing, it's so funny, and it is LGBT, so highly recommend. The next book on this list is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This book, if you don't already know, follows a girl named Star and the repercussions that happen to her as she sees her best friend be shot by the police. It is all about the Black Lives Matter movement, and it is such a powerful book that if you haven't read it yet, you really need to hop on this because it is incredible and amazing and just so powerful. I think I read this while I was participating in the booktubeathon, so I read it really quickly, but I would 100% go back and reread this without a doubt, without a question, because I just want to remember all of the feelings that I had while I was reading it, and this is definitely a book that I feel like everybody should read at some point in their lives, especially now with what's happening in the world. Like, just please do yourself a favor and pick it up because it's incredible. Number 8 on my list is Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertelli. I read this book midway through the year, I believe, and it was just so adorable, so funny, so incredibly sweet and endearing, but also hilarious at the same time, and I absolutely loved it. If you don't already know, Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda is about Simon. He's gay but hasn't come out as gay, and the whole book is about him struggling to, find a way to do that where he feels comfortable but doesn't cause anybody else to change the way that they think about him. It also has a lot more going on than just that. Like, he's got this secret email relationship with this guy named Blue, but he doesn't really know who Blue is, and things that happen with his friends and his family, and it's just a really heartwarming coming of age book. It's also being turned into a movie called Love, Simon this year. Oh my god, it's 2018, it's coming out this year. And I'm just so ready for it, and oh my god. Number 7 on my list is actually a really recent read for me, and that is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This was my first Marissa Meyer book I ever read, and I had no intention of picking this up until I walked into Barnes & Noble one day and saw it there, and it was a signed copy, and I was like, you know what? I've seen it around, it's signed, I might as well get it. And a day later I saw it sitting on my floor and was like, I kind of want to pick it up, so I did it, and I don't regret it whatsoever. It was such a good book. And to be honest, I think the reason I liked it so much was because it had been such a long time since I'd read a dystopian with kids with superpowers and things like that, that it was really fun. Basically, in this world, you have the prodigies, who are humans with superhuman abilities. These prodigies have split themselves up. You are either a renegade, which is a superhero, or part of the supervillain groups. There are the anarchists and the roaches and all of the different groups like that. In this book, we follow a character who is a renegade and a character who is an anarchist, and it has been, I think, like 9 years since the Age of Anarchy ended, so the anarchists are kind of in hiding, and renegades have kind of taken over everything and created rules and all that. It's such a great, funny, just adorable book. It's not adorable. It's got death and things in it, but it's great. Also, when I was picking it up, I hadn't expected it to be this big. This was like a 500 plus page book, and it's the first book. It's gonna be a duology, so the second one is coming out next year, and I really, really want to read it because the one scene that you really, really, really want to happen in this book does not happen in this book, and I thought it was a standalone, so I thought it was gonna happen, and then it didn't happen, and then I realized there was a second book to it, and now I need to have it. Number 6 on my list this year is The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. This was one of the first books that I read last year. I think I read it in either January or February, and I absolutely loved it. I remember around the time that I was reading this, I raved about it non-stop. It was just such a good book. It literally made me cry at the end. It was just insanely good. So The Sun is Also a Star is a story that follows Natasha and Daniel. We get dual perspectives, and it's told in a really interesting format. So we get perspectives into Natasha and Daniel, but we also get little snippets into things like multiverses and, you know, how this pertains to the book and the story. I think when I was doing my book talk for it, I kind of called it the butterfly effect, and I can't remember if that was the right term for it or not, but basically it's about how random actions affect the story in this book. Like if somebody had made a completely different choice, then this wouldn't have happened, then this wouldn't have happened, then this wouldn't have happened, and then they wouldn't have done this. It's like that. And it's just a really, really powerful book. I don't know another way to say it. It just made a really big impact on me when I was reading it. The plot, though, is about Natasha. She is a Jamaican immigrant, and with her family, they are about to be deported, and Daniel is a prospective Yale student, I think, and he is Asian, is always following what his parents want from him, and they meet, and this entire book happens in 24 hours right before Natasha is about to be deported, and it's just, it's so good. Number 5 on my list is another recent read, and that is Magnus Chase 3, The Ship of the Dead. This is the final book in the Magnus Chase series, which is the Norse mythology series by Rick Riordan. It's so, so good. It was so good. I want to see more of Magnus and Sam and Alex and Blitz and Hearth and everybody. I want to see more of them, and I'm afraid that their story is over, but I want to see more. He's related to Annabeth, so if he doesn't make an appearance in any of the other books that could possibly come out, there haven't been any announcements or anything, but if there were more books, I want to see more of him. It's such a diverse book. It has so many different qualities about it that make it amazing. If you haven't picked up the series yet, I highly recommend. I do recommend reading the other Percy Jackson books first, but honestly, you don't have to read this book. You could pick this up and follow right through. So number 4 on this list might actually surprise you that it's as low as it is, but it is Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. I know that a lot of you are probably thinking that this would have been my top pick, or my second to top, or yeah, no. I don't know why, but it took me like a month to actually pick up this book, and when I did, I didn't read it as quickly as I had Lady Midnight. I honestly don't know why. Obviously, once I finished the book, it was 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I want the next one right now. I'm gonna read it as soon as it comes out. But for some reason, I stalled picking this one up, and I think that's why I didn't put it as high on the list as I normally do. Second book in the Dark Artifices, Emma and Julian, Forbidden Love, The Blackthorns, all the shit that goes down with them. Do I have to say more? I'm gonna spoil the rest of the series if I do, so pick it up. It's great. So now we're getting down to my top 3 books that I read in 2017. I almost forgot what year I was talking about. One of these is a contemporary, 2 of them are fantasy, and you can probably tell what 2 of them are going to be from what I haven't already listed in this list. But number 3 is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I also read this book for the Booktubeathon, so I read it very, very quickly, but I feel like I would have read it quickly regardless because it was just so freaking adorable. I have wanted to reread this book ever since I first read it. It was everything to me, and I don't know how I waited so long to read it, but I'm so, so happy that I finally did. I had this book sitting on my shelf for at least 2 years before I actually picked it up, and I don't know what is wrong with me because I resonated so hard with this book. I loved it to pieces. It is one of my favorite books to date. I will push it on anybody who wants a contemporary to read and hasn't read it already. I can't say anything more about this book. It's so, so good. If for some reason you don't know what it's about, this girl Kath writes fan fiction about Simon and Baz, who are two very famous characters in this world. And, you know, she's her first year in college. She doesn't want to be there. She's going through the notions. It's kind of a coming of age story with the age that I am right now. And it's just so good. So the book that took second place last year for me was Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. Like I said, I'm only picking one book from every author that I read last year, so I actually picked this book over all of the Court of Thorns and Roses series. I had to really, really think about it when I was trying to decide, because I had between this and Akamath, and obviously I loved A Court of Mist and Fury with all of my heart, and I still do. But there was something about this book and this world and these characters that I just really, really, really liked, and looking back on it would 100% reread right now. So that's why I picked it. I just remember in this book, it was just so fast-paced and action-packed, and so much was happening at one point in time that I could not put it down. And obviously I read it in like 2 days, but I don't know, there was just something about it that I just loved so much more than I did A Court of Mist and Fury, and that's why I picked it. I haven't actually finished this series yet. This is the farthest that I got in this series last year. I haven't picked up Empire of Storms or Tower of Dawn, but I really am looking forward to this year doing both of those. It was just so good, and I just loved all of the characters. You know, we got to see more of Adian, we got to see, you know, Aelin and Rowan, and more of Lysandra. Oh, Lysandra really made this book. Everything about this book I loved, and I can't wait to read the next ones. And we are finally down to the number one book that I read last year, my absolute favorite book that I read out of all of the 37 books that I read. You can probably already know what series that it's from, and if you look behind me you can see what book it is, but before you get that far, I'm gonna come out and say that it was A Conjuring of Light by Victoria Schwab. This series, this world, this author, I'm still just, like, I can't think about this series without just, like, crumbling. I read the entirety of this series this year, and to be quite honest, when I was first making this list, I had all 3 of the books listed as my top 3, but then I made my rules and I had to pick one of them, and I ended up with this one. Originally, I was gonna pick Gathering of Shadows, because that one was really, really good, but to be honest, this one I think stood out the most to me. So much happened in it, and it was just such a good conclusion to the series that I just couldn't make this video and not have this be my favorite book of the year. I remember I cried during this book and I laughed so hard. My favorite scene in the entire series is in this book. I just love this book and this series to pieces. I love it with all of my heart, and I really, really want to reread it this year so that I can make a book talk for this one, because for some reason I didn't. I read it so quickly that I didn't take notes, and then I never made a book talk. So when I reread them this year, which will happen, I'm going to do it. If you haven't heard me talk about them enough already, the Shades of Magic series is about a magician named Kell who lives in Red London, who is what they call an Antari, which means that he can travel between Londons. There are 4 Londons. There's white, black, gray, and red, and we follow Kell and also Lila, who is this badass pickpocket, you know, living in Grey London, and at some point in time they run into each other and things just spiral off from there. It is about, in the first book, these 2 twin king and queens in White London, and then it is about Black London, and it's just this incredible story of just friendship and family and lots of magic, and it's great, and you have to pick it up. Please pick it up. If I am going to tell you to read any book at all, please make it this series. It's so good. And with that, I leave you with my 10 favorite books of 2017. It was so hard picking these books for this list, but I am really, really happy with what I've chosen in the order in that I've chosen them. They all had a huge impact on me, and I loved them to pieces. Some of them more than others, but all of them just have a place in my heart, and I can't wait to add more stories to that heart and just keep devouring and reading and all that stuff. That barely made any sense, but you get what I mean. So if you've gotten this far, please let me know what your favorite book of 2017 was, what book had the greatest impact on you, and what book you will cherish forever and ever until the day that you die. Obviously you know what that book is for me, but I'm really curious to know what it is for you guys, so please let me know. I will leave all of the links to all of these books down below on Goodreads if you want to learn more about them and possibly read them in the future, but other than that, that is going to be it for this video. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you later. Goodbye!